Hey, welcome to Square Body Stuff. I'm Chad, and you might recognize this guy. This is Squeaky. I'm going to try to go over in this video what really happened with the drive shaft, what I did wrong, and how we fixed it at the track. Now, as you can see, I've still got my burnout tires on there. We ran dually rims on this, and I'll probably go over the spacers and stuff that we had to make work to get the dually wheels on there. The whole burnout situation was kind of sketchy, and that doesn't even include what we had to do with the drive shaft. Yeah, the spacers and stuff that's going on here to get these wheels to work, I wouldn't really want to run it on the road, but it worked. It done good for it to burn out. Now, if you haven't kept up with what's going on with this truck, we took it to No Name Nationals and had a absolute blast. Yeah, it's still trying to get my mind wrapped around everything that happened. It was an absolute blast. Met some good folks there, a lot of other YouTubers, and made some good friends. That's yeah, it's just been pretty cool. So to kind of break it down what happened with this truck, if you haven't watched the video, we showed up there. We called out Perpetual Projects. They've got a D150. It's a long bed Dodge half-ton pickup with a 440 in it. We called them out. It's just a friendly deal, just to have some fun. They were pitted right next to us, and we decided to just run these trucks right off the trailer. Neither one of the trucks were tested. Both of them, you know, maybe had like 3 miles on them. Well, more than that, because we drove them to Lambert's and back to the restaurant and back the Thursday night of No Name Nationals. But really, our trucks were pretty well matched as far as for everything, really. So what we decided to do is just run them off the trailer. No practice, no testing, no tuning, no nothing. It's been, probably at least a year and a half, if not more, since I've been on the track. So I was a little green. I changed a lot of stuff on the truck, so I was trying to, I tried to figure out what was going on at the line, and I messed up my launch. Go back and watch that video. I think it's day 2 of No Name Nationals. I messed up the launch. No excuses. Really, Travis in the red Dodge, his truck hooked up, made the best. I think that was the best pass of his weekend. He had some issues of his own, but go watch their channel to see what issues they had. They were similar issues than what I was having. Maybe not quite as catastrophic. Well, the second time, maybe more catastrophic, but go check their channel out to see what happened there. So we lined up, we took off. Old Squeaky hooked up good, but I bogged on the line. Just kind of regrouped. Travis has already gone and left me. There was no sense of trying to race him anymore because he was gone. So I just kind of regrouped and I didn't get Squeaky up on the 2-step like I should have on the line. He did launch pretty hard, but just like nothing. So got him regrouped, took off. I was in 3rd gear, and that was my whole plan with the way this thing is set up. With this 4-speed, the SM465 4-speed, with the 488 gears, I could take off in 3rd and just have to shift into 4th. And actually, it worked out pretty good once I kind of got myself back into, got it all figured out. So that first pass down the track, I bogged, regrouped, got it back up on the 2-step, took off, and Squeaky hooked up. Well, kind of hooked up. I was kind of skating once I got in the 3rd. Once I got going, this track was a little bit slick past the 60-foot. So anyway, I was slipping a little bit, no big deal. Yeah, and I'm used to this small block, which that's the 305 that was in it. If you're not sure what's going on with that, go check out some other videos. We're building something special with that, but for right now, we got the old big block. Well, I had my rev limiter for the big block set at 6,000 RPM. I was used to shifting this thing at 6,800 RPM, so being just not having my mind wrapped around what was going on the track. In my peripheral vision, I was watching the tack, and I mean, it was coming up fast. I mean, he was pulling hard. Once he got done skating, pulling hard, and I was waiting for it to hit, you know, over 6,500 RPM. Well, before I knew it, it was bouncing off the rev limiter. Like, oh crap, I need to shift. So I shifted, pulled it back and forth. He hooked up hard, pulled me pretty good. I don't really know exactly where on the track that the drive shaft let loose, but he was pulling hard. About midway through fourth gear, and drive shaft let loose. Well, the deal was, it broke in half. The reason it broke in half, and it's my fault, my drive shaft builder, is none of his fault. He built the drive shaft just the way I asked him to, and pretty much just the way he told me wasn't going to work. So he was right. It was too long. Wasn't rated for the RPMs that I was going to be running and all that stuff. So it went a little, probably a few more 100 RPM than what he said it was rated at. And what happened was the drive shaft got the whipping. It wasn't because of torque. It wasn't because this big block's got that much torque. It was just because the drive shaft, when they're that long, they'll actually start noodling a little bit. And when they start doing that, they'll just come apart. So that's what happened. It bent, broke, tore up a bunch of stuff. So here's a little bit of what happened. Some of the parts failures. This is one of the U-joint U-bolts. Yeah, it's no longer usable. This happened whenever the drive shaft broke, came out, and it just ripped this one out. The other one was still in there and usable. I'll show you that here in a minute. Yeah, this guy here, hope you can get a good look at that. This happens to be the end of my slip yoke. Now, when I went to go put everything back together, after I got the drive shaft put back together, which I'll explain what I did there in a little bit. But this guy here was boogered up, split. So I just cut it off. I didn't need this. Didn't need this where we were going. So cut it off so my slip yoke would work, just so we can make the burnout contest. Now let's take a peek of what I did with this U-joint U-bolt that it was broke. Well, you know, it was shaped kind of like this. Well, we couldn't find another one in the town of Sykeston. So after everything else, built the drive shaft, got the slip yoke cut down to where it would work, we were pretty much dead in the water unless we found some way to hook this rear U-joint to the rear differential. So this is what we came up with. Now, it's not right, but it worked. Somehow, it stayed together for the whole burnout contest. Yeah, this might make some people proud and make some people cringe that were in the stand. Well, not really the stands, but the spectators of the burnout contest. This right here was all that was keeping this like 100-pound drive shaft. Because yeah, this tube here is really heavy wall. It's like 1/4-inch wall. It just, yeah. I'll show you more of that here in just a little bit. But this stroke of genius, if you could call it that, is all that was holding this drive shaft in when I was bouncing off the rev limiter at 5,000 RPM. Yeah, I set the rev limiter really conservative just so I didn't hurt the engine while I was doing the burnout. But it's just a strap. I had to drill out the holes for the strap for these bolts to go through. And these are just some 3/8 grade 8 bolts, grade 8 nuts. And they don't look like they're tight, but that's as tight as I could get it. I just hammered them in as far as I go, got the nuts going, got them as tight as I go. I took my hammer and just hammered these as hard as I could and tighten these, hammer tight, until it wasn't going to go anymore. So this is all that was holding this drive shaft in for the burnout contest. Now the other side looks like it's supposed to. That's the way it's supposed to be. but we couldn't find another U-bolt. We did have to put another U-joint. This is a new U-joint we put in there. Of course, you can see I didn't even bother putting the grease circuit in there or putting grease in it, because all I had to do is go through a burnout contest. Let's go up here to the front. Let me turn on the light. Well, we got plenty of light. It did kind of booger up my safety loop. It's kind of egg-shaped now, but it done its job. But as you can see, this is where I cut the splines off. So it just barely got, no, I think the splines are maybe about this long. That's all it's holding in there. Now the front U-joint, that's the way it's supposed to be. Everything's good there. But this is the weld. This is that heavy wall. I welded that on that end and this end. Thanks to Layton Motorsports and NSB Custom Cars for having the equipment there for me to be able to weld this up. Alright, so while I'm under here, I'm going to go ahead and pull this drive shaft out and get the old drive shaft back in here and kind of see what we're going to have to do, if we're going to have to shorten it or not. Oh, there it goes. Yeah, that's all I was holding it in. The bolts are bent. I think my yoke, it survived. I could clean it up a little bit, but it's gonna live to see another day. I'll double check it. Make sure it's not split anywhere or anything real bad going on with it. But I think it's all right. I mean, it held up during a burnout, so what else can you expect out of it? I'm not sure if you can really tell on camera, but my drive shaft loop is no longer round. It's kind of egg-shaped, and it's kind of pulled down a little bit. So I think to go back in with the new shaft, I'll probably have to put my jack under here and push it back up and maybe make it fit a little bit better. Let's get this front yoke out and see what we got going on. Now we got this thing out on the bench. We can get a little better look at it. Here's the back end of it. I just took this part, slid up in there, welded it up. We had it measured out. It may be a little bit short, but I wanted it short instead of long. That's why we had this much, about this much of the splined into this yoke. Now you can see this is where I cut that piece off because it split and the threads were, or the splines were kind of messed up from when the drive shaft came out. Yeah, that's what the U-bolt's supposed to look like. So when you get new U-bolts, the front straps worked okay, nothing wrong with them. I may go ahead and replace them just to be on the safe side. But this is what I had put together. We welded this up on the back of a Dodge Dakota, thanks to Layton Motorsports and NSB Customs. And yeah, that's it. That's what we were dealing with. That's what we done. This is what made it through the burnout contest. Well, I've got the two drive shafts laid up next to each other, and it's looking pretty promising. I've got this one collapsed as much as it will, and I've got them lined up here, and this one is collapsed as much as it will, and I'm a little bit shorter on this drive shaft. So we should be okay as far as our length goes. I'm just gonna have to find another carrier bearing. But just to make sure, I'm gonna slide it up in the truck. I gotta put my carrier bearing bracket back on the truck, bolt it back to the frame. This guy here, I've got some bolts to do that. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that, kind of fit everything up. Well, I don't know how it all worked out the way it did, but I've got a drive shaft back in Squeaky. I didn't have to have it cut down. Had just enough room for slip. I found some more U-bolts that I had stashed away because I'm a hoarder, so I got parts everywhere. Found some more U-bolts. Now, I will have to replace the carrier bearing. I'm not gonna take it to the drag strip the way it is. I'm gonna go ahead and try to order a pillow block bearing, get it in. But for right now, just to maybe drive it back and forth to work. I really need to put some time on this and get the clutch a little more seasoned in. That was one of my other things at No Name Nationals. The clutch really didn't have enough miles on it. So I was kind of worried about doing a bunch of drag racing with the clutch. But this will give me an opportunity to drive it back and forth to work. I'll put the street tires back on there, which the street tires are the 37s, and I think they're 255 60s up front. Put those back on there. I'm gonna drive it back and forth to work a few times and just drive it a little bit until the pillow block bearing comes in for the carrier bearing, and we'll worry about that. Now my drive shaft angle is, I may have to refigure that a little bit once I get the pillow block bearing in. Let me show you what I'm talking about. I know it's hard to see with the light and everything, but this drive shaft, the rear secondary drive shaft is what I call them, is almost flat. I haven't put a degree finder or anything on there to see where my angles are actually at. I was going to wait to get the pillow block bearing in here, but for right now I think it's going to be okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take these tires and wheels off the back. That way I don't have to worry about any imbalance with those, because I mean, look at these, they're not they're not balanced. But I'll take those and the spacers and everything off, and I'm going to start it up, run it in gear with it on the jack stands, and just see if I can feel any driveline vibration, and just go from there, see what it feels like. Just in case any of you were curious of how we put those dually wheels on the back of this. Now this is a axle out of a 3/4 ton. I think it's a early 2000s model. In order to fit those dually wheels on there, we had to put these 3-inch spacers with, I think it's a 1/2-inch spacer in behind them. So 3.5 inches of spacer behind the dually wheels, just to get them to fit on there so we can make a burnout contest. With the 3-inch, just a 3-inch, they wouldn't clear the caliper, so we put the 1/2-inch on there just to get it to where it clear everything, make a burnout contest, and put on the show. Because race truck. I decided to keep the spacers on because that will keep these rotors from flopping around, giving me any weird vibrations. So I'm going to start him up, put him in 4th gear, and see what happens. I put it in 4th gear, and I think the rev limiter is still set at 5,000 RPM. Yeah, let's see what happens. Why not? At least I'm in the shop. Yeah, this is sketchy. I don't advise doing this. This is not, yeah. Don't do this at home. I'm a not so trained YouTube professional. Let's do this. To the speedometer, it's way off, but rev limiter. I don't feel anything weird. I don't know. I think it'll work for now. Like I said, until I get that pillow block bearing in, I'm probably going to take it to the drag strip. Hopefully I get one in before this weekend, and I can run up there Friday for a few hours before I have to go to work and play around with him. So I'm going to put the street tires back on him, drive him back and forth to work a few days, the rest of the week, and yeah, see what happens. So far seems good. Not perfect. By no means do I suggest doing anything I have done with this truck to anybody else. But yeah, we're going to just send it for right now and hope it works out. So until next time, y'all keep your square bodies rolling. Hopefully a little more safe than I do mine. And we'll see you later.